Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of Little Modular. This module right here you might know because I already have reviewed it a few months ago, but that was only a small preview because I only had this module for about 1 or 2 days and I really didn't get to know it as much as I would like to. So today I would like to make an in-depth review of this and show you all of the features of this excellent synth voice module by Erica Synths. Now, before we proceed any further, let me tell you this. As for now, this module is only available as a do-it-yourself. So before you use it, you will actually have to build it yourself. But it's totally worth it. So let's start with the basics. This is half modular design, meaning that all of the basic blocks of synthesis are hardwired internally. But you have all those inputs and outputs below here that you could use for your advantage and break the connection and use those modules that are separate in here as separate modules. So this is a perfect module for a starting point of your whole system. That's because as it's already pre-patched internally, you could start spitting out some patterns and sounds immediately without any need to patch oscillator, to filter, to VCA, to mixer. It's all done already. So you only need to trigger the envelope and here you go. But of course, if you wish so, you could use the gate, external gate, for example. You could use the envelopes to fire off some other modules. You could use the noise source, you could use the oscillator out and connect it to some other modules. So it's best of both worlds, and if you ask me, this is a really flexible thing and I really like this approach. Now let's start with the core sound source, which is in this case a digital oscillator. Now before you cast a stone and you say, "Meh, digital oscillator, that's not a thing for me," let me tell you this thing. For the first few weeks I was really convinced these are analog. That's how good they sounded. And let me just remind you that some of the best sounding synthesizers in the history had a similar digital core. For example, EDP Wasp. How about that? The filter section is analog, but we will get to this. So starting with the oscillator. I trigger the oscillator with this manual gate. By the way, you have 2 of these, which I will show later on. Now, for the sake of this presentation and for ease of presentation, I will cycle this first gate. You can put this first envelope into loop mode by holding this button for 5 seconds. Here we go. So that's how this module sounds without any modulation. Again, because it was a little bit close, so I just opened the cutoff right here so we can hear again how the raw oscillator sound source sounds like. These are all the basic waveforms again, with the filter wide open. First knob in this oscillator section is a pitch. You get 8 octaves from C1 to C8, which is pretty great range. Down below you choose the wave. You can morph smoothly between different waves. You get all the basic shapes. Down below there are 2 FM buses. Internal FM, and you can use this second envelope as a source. Okay, so you decide how much of this modulation you would like to apply, or you can use external FM, which you connect right here. I have Intelligent Rubicon connected here, and again here is the amount of the modulation. So internal external, and the fun thing is these both get mixed, so you can get all kind of different timbres and sounds out of this through experimenting. Really nice feature. Beside the original oscillator, you also get a sub-oscillator, which operates 1 octave below, and it's a static square wave. So if you want to add any fatness and weight to the sound, you would do that with this sub-oscillator right here. You also get a noise, a static noise. That's the amount control. And last but not least, external sound source, which you connect right here. In my case, this is AFG. So you can also process an external sound source with the filter, modulation, and all of these controls. Okay? So you can already hear that you can achieve some really crazy sounds in a matter of seconds. So it's really flexible. But let's go back to the basic sounds so I can show you the other features. That's how the filter sounds like. And this is a Polyvox inspired filter, meaning it's really aggressive, raunchy. And if you set it to a maximum resonance, it's getting into self-oscillation mode, which unfortunately I won't be able to show you because I have a prototype, so I don't have this feature. Okay, but let me show you how it sounds again with more resonance, even more resonance, again more resonance. It's getting really rowdy. You can get some nice acid sounds. Okay. You get a low pass filter. With this switch right here, you can get a band pass filter, which sounds also really nice. Okay. So this is a band pass, low pass again. Okay, now this filter can be modulated with the second envelope right here, and that's where you set it. That's the modulation depth. As you can see, if I slow down the rate, that's where it modulates the cutoff frequency. That's the depth of the modulation. You can also modulate this with external signal, which you patch right in here, CV2. So for example, if I take a cable and patch some external LFO, in my case Batumi, okay, and of course they are mixed, so again you can get some complex modulations right out of the box, which is really nice. Okay, so that's the filter section and the filter modulation. Now here are two EGs, and that's where this module gets really interesting, and let me show you why. These are one of the most cleverly implemented envelopes and modulation sections I have ever encountered. We only have two envelopes, but they're really smart. So we have two of these, upper one red and lower one green. The upper one is responsible for triggering the VCA, and it can have a linear or logarithmic response, switchable right here. Let's get back to linear. Attack, release, simple enough, right? Okay, let me switch to some maybe other wave. Okay, that's some more pleasing sound. Attack, release. Now, normally those two envelopes are synchronized. meaning that, for example, if you plug anything into the gate 1, they both get the same clock. And you can also trigger them both with this trigger right here simultaneously. I don't have this feature again because I have a prototype, but that's what you get on the retail version. So, first one responsible for triggering the VCA. Now, the cool thing is that the lower one could be also an EG or it could be an LFO, and it could also trigger the VCA. And how much of this influences VCA you set with this knob right here. Meaning you can get some really crazy VCA triggering with combination of those two. Just listen to it. Right now it's the LFO mode. By the way, you can tap tempo this envelope. I'm sorry, with this trigger right here. So it's really useful in a live situation. Tap tempo. As you can hear, we get all crazy kind of modulations. In LFO mode, this knob is responsible for waveform of the LFO, and you get 16 of these. And the lower one is responsible for rate. So combination of these two envelopes can get you into some crazy patterns without any need for any external modules, as you can hear right now. Especially when you fiddle with the depth of the modulation. So you can hear it's all really interesting sounds, especially when they are not synced. You get this sort of polyrhythmic modulations. Now, the cool thing is about the second envelope. It could also be, of course, an EG that you can trigger manually or via the gate 2 input. But the cool thing about this one is, of course, you can also cycle it, holding it for 5 seconds, which we'll do right now. Now, the cool thing is that you could use this envelope as a source for cutoff modulation also. So, and you could use it as a source for FM1, as I mentioned before. So if you put it into really fast modulations, we can get some really crazy stuff, modulating 3 destinations at once. So we could modulate the VCA right here. We could modulate the cutoff frequency right here, and we could use it as an FM source. We could do that simultaneously, or we could decide which part of the module to modulate and which to keep intact. So it's really flexible and really immediate. That's what I love about it. So all those crazy patterns and sounds just within reach of your hand. Now, what I have shown you was all internal and hardwired options. Now, as I mentioned before, you get all of those inputs and outputs. You get a separate EG out for each of the envelopes. You get a VCA-F filter out, sub-oscillator out, and VCO out. So you can fiddle internally and patch this module within itself. Let's say, for example, that instead of external FM, I would go about and use the noise out as an internal FM. So I just plug out the noise out into the FM2, and let's just maybe, so you can hear how it sounds. It's FM by noise. Let's just leave only the original oscillator. Okay, that's without, that's with the noise. So you get all kinds of nasty, strange, swarmy sounding sounds. Now, what about if you would like to use the envelope number 2 out and modulate the gate of first envelope? So we will do just that. Switch to LFO, for example. You will get all of those crazy sample and hold modulations. And let's remember that the second LFO can modulate FM2 bus and of course the VCA. So we get all of those crazy sounds. And of course filter. So we decide which of the targets we modulate. Possibilities are endless. I want to show you right now how simple it is to turn this thing into a standard synthesizer, because we have a synthesizer voice. So it just begs for using it just like a simple synthesizer, right? Now, I have plugged here to gate 1, gate out of the Arturia key step. Really nifty small thing, a keyboard with CV and gate out. The CV is sticked into the 1 volt per octave, so it controls the frequency of oscillator. And I also have muted this to 1 volt per octave input on the AFG, so it controls both the oscillator on synth voice and the pitch on the AFG. So when I press it, you see here is the envelope, and here I control what sources I want to include in the mix. I choose the wave. As you can hear, sounds really nice. Now we can employ the LFO here. To modulate the frequency oscillator, let's make it fast. We can use it as an FM, as I showed you before. Or without FM. With external FM, let me just fine-tune this external FM. It's really straightforward and just right out of the box. So you could use it on its own. You could use it together with a keyboard and which has a CV and gate out. Simple as that. You could use it with a sequencer like a Metropolis. So you stick the gate in here, CV in here, or you get the similar thing only with a sequencer. So to sum it up, to me it's a real beast. If you need a simple bass, you just turn down all of the modulation and right, and you get a bass with a really gnarly sounding filter. If you put up a resonance up, you can hear it by yourself. It really doesn't take much of fiddling to find a sweet spot. very much for watching. That was a little modular review on incredible synth voice module. Till the next time, take care.